Hey everybody, welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I'm Matt Connarton, and to my right, as always, is the Honorable Gary S. Hopper.
You think I need my nails done, Matt?
I didn't want to say anything, Gary.
Right.
But maybe, yeah, you could use a mani.
A mani?
Manicure.
Is that when men get their nails done? It's a manicure?
Yes.
Why is it? Well, women, when they get it, is it a womanicure?
No, it's
Still
a
a
manicure.
We should just call it a person cure.
It's the pedicure that's really kind of cool.
Oh.
Really?
Yeah, they go in, they wash your feet, and they massage your legs, and make it all feel.
Should get one of those.
Makes you relax.
I'm
And while you
pretty
sit
good
in the
at- have you
chair,
ever-
they have these
well,
little
actually,
massages
that
that go up your
infers that
back.
you've never seen me in the representatives hall. I am very good at relaxing.
Oh.
So almost like
Are you as good as Martha Fuller Clark?
better. I actually, okay, well, anyway, our guest is Karen Testerman this evening.
Yes.
The wonderful Karen. So she's referring to, quite a few years ago, one of our buddies here in town, Greg Saltz, was a representative and took a picture of Martha Fuller Clark sleeping. And so Martha, and but the problem was Martha was in the front row.
Yeah.
Okay, and this caused a lot of people to be upset. And over time, I've actually kind of disagreed with Greg on this. It's probably inappropriate for him to do that. But anyway, so at the time, she was going around. She was on Channel 9. Said, yeah, sometimes it gets kind of stuffy in there, and I get a little bit sleepy. But I'm not the. What did she say? Something, but I think I'm the youngest person that sleeps in there, or something like that. And so I went up to her in the hall afterwards, and I says, I think I'm younger than you.
Wow.
Because it does. It gets
It gets warm in there.
It gets
and,
really
Really?
warm.
Yeah.
and
It's
especially after lunch.
after
Really?
after
Yeah.
lunch
After
and
hours
of
of sitting
debate over
Oh,
the
wow.
same thing.
It probably is very difficult to stay awake in some
Yes.
cases.
Really? Yeah.
That's why they get up and walk around. I'm convinced. That was one of the
Oh, yeah.
self-defenses is to move.
Right.
That's
right.
why
yeah.
there was actually a Democrat that was tooled on this
Session.
past year. I think it was last year, but this session, the woman from very, very liberal woman from Keene, I've forgotten her name, but I think she's like anti-gun and stuff like that. But anyway, somebody was put on Facebook. Here she is playing solitaire. Okay, while they're voting, while they're debating, and they're saying, "Oh, this is terrible. Who the heck would do that?" And I posted back. I says, "That is such a crock. At least she's in the room. Look in front of her. There's nobody else there."
Right.
So she's at least sitting there trying to listen to the arguments back and forth and just doing something with her,
Right.
to keep
Well,
busy.
quite honestly, if it behooved you would be doing needlepoint or knitting or something
somebody
like
was
that
knitting
to
or
keep your
needlepoint.
hands.
I can imagine Gary doing that.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Hey, Rosie O'Greer used to do it.
Yeah,
He used
exactly.
to do his needlepoints, beautiful ones, as a matter of fact. But the whole thing is to somehow engage yourself so that you can be moving enough that you don't go
Pass
to
out,
sleep
yeah.
with all of the.
Yeah, I mean that's what I do. I get up and walk around, or I'll pass out a lot more than I do, because it is just that tedious at times.
And it does get warm in there.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have to admit, and especially if you've got something in your stomach and it's getting ready to be digested, and
Right.
all of those other bodily functions that start going on. Okay, we don't have
Anyway,
to go
yeah,
down
that's
that road.
All right, hey,
How are
all
you,
right,
Gary?
All right, Karen,
I want to know,
yes.
since you are to the right of Matt, does that mean that Matt is always to the left of you?
Yes, and that means that you're to the right of me, so that's not a safe place to be.
I keep wanting to find something that I can be to the right of you on. Like I've thought about right to work, and I haven't been able to form an opinion on it.
That actually is a little bit right to me.
But I want to end up deciding that
that you agree with right to work, just so that you can.
Just so I can be to the right of you on something. I just think it'd be fun.
Well, I was actually talking to the lady that's doing the swimming lessons for my grandson, and she's pretty liberal. And we were talking. There was another woman in town, Selma, and we got to be friends over Facebook because I split off with the Republicans on GMO labeling.
Oh yes, yep.
To me, label it. If it's so good for you, then defend it.
Right. Yeah,
you know, it's like me as a politician, if I'm going to vote a certain way, I have to be able to defend that. Well, if you're using GMOs in your food product, then defend it. Tell us why it's great, but label it so we know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so another one.
Yeah,
Another
there
turn.
you go.
Information's good.
Yeah.
Information is always good. So anyway, it was funny because I became friends with Selma on Facebook because of GMO labeling, and I was one of the, we can actually do a show on that next month.
Oh, cool.
And but that's the only issue we agree on.
Yeah.
It's like I don't think there's anything else that we've agreed on Facebook, but it's still
I don't know.
cordial.
You might find a few things. It's amazing to me. There are these things. What I love is we disagree so much on all of the issues. We just shouldn't talk politics, religion, or whatever. And I said, so everything affects your life.
Right.
Why wouldn't you want to discuss it and find out if you could sway me or I could sway you?
Exactly.
Or, why
Exactly.
can't we talk about these things just because you think I'm here? It's like living in Franklin. Everybody thinks that because I live in Franklin, I'm 100% behind Northern Pass.
Huh.
I won't tell you whether I am or I'm not, but at least discuss it with me. Let me hear what your pros and cons are.
Right. Right.
I always that subject is humorous to me, and to me it got brought home with a guy I used to work with, and he came up to me in work and he was tweaked about Northern Pass, absolutely tweaked. You can't let them blight the land up there like that. That's insane. Why are they doing it? And it was just on and on. Every day he was absolutely livid, upset about Northern Pass. During the process, he started looking at the more updated plans for Northern Pass and found out that the electric lines were actually quite a bit further from his house than he thought. And then he didn't care. Well, we need electricity somehow.
Right. Yeah.
Well, what I thought was interesting is I went for a bike ride. It was Bikers Week last week, right?
Yeah.
And I haven't been on a motorcycle in probably, I don't even want to tell you how many years, because I used to work in an ER, and I'd see the casualties come in. So I was never a big fan of bikes.
Right.
So, but it was for the POWMIA celebration.
Okay. So you took a chance.
So I took a chance, and I got on the back of a bike, and there we go. And we're going along the road by Weirs Beach, and all of a sudden you see these brand new condos, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, that's destroying my view of the lake.
Right.
How can you build that?
Right.
Anyway,
Yeah,
little
no.
humor.
Well, yeah, it's true. It's always a function of what affects the person. It's like everybody wants their cell phones, except me. I don't have a cell phone.
Right.
But everybody wants their cell phones. They want their computer. They want their TV to work. They want the air conditioner to work right now.
Yes.
Absolutely. They want the AC to work. They want their lights to go on, but they don't want any source of electricity because they don't want dams. Okay. So they don't want hydropower, which is renewable. They don't want wind turbines because those kill eagles. They don't want. Well, we were supposed to have 2 nuclear reactors on the seacoast. We only ended up doing 1 because of all the lawsuits, if I remember correctly.
There was supposed to be a second one?
Yeah, there was supposed to be a second
I never
one.
knew that.
Oh, yeah.
Huh.
But they just kept suing, and whatever, the cost got so great to actually build it that it became diminishing returns. So every
we don't want the coal.
No, you
coal
can't have
burning.
coal. Can't have coal anymore. Obama's putting
and now I see where we're upset about the pipeline for natural gas.
No, you can't have the pipeline for natural gas because that would do something to somebody. So
And we want our electric cars, but I don't know where we're going to go get the recharging.
No, you can't
Station.
use electric cars because then we'll need more sources of electricity, and then we'll have to let Northern Pass in. So it's just insanity. I mean,
Yeah.
we've become so litigious and so selfish that we can't like agree on anything to try to resolve issues anymore.
And the thing is, if we would look at where all of our power comes from in the first place, it's this little teeny tiny triangle out of the whole great big pie.
Bermuda?
That comes from renewable sources like water, wind, solar.
Right.
That's just a little part of the pie. The most of it comes from coal, and then you have your natural gas, and then you have your oil. And yet we have huge reserves of these. We've discovered all of this new stuff, and we shouldn't frack, and we shouldn't
do anything to actually get any of it, and we can't use it anymore. The Obama administration's come down really hard. I don't know how much of this is BS, though, because they said that the coal power plants had to be meet a certain standard, and that's all the Republicans are talking about. But the fact of the matter is, I believe it's not till 2030.
Right. It's one of those kick the can down the road.
Right. And
because
so
every 2 years you get a new Congress in there.
Right.
And it changes just slightly. And so once they get the new Congress in, the new Congress makes rules for 5 years down the road.
Right.
And we have a new starting point.
Right, but what I'm getting at is, if you really read it, it's really not as devastating as they tried to make it seem to be.
That's absolutely correct. And we're not regulating any of the other countries that are contributing as well. Russia and China, they add pollutants. I mean, all the other countries add pollutants to the air.
I think China's like really hard. There was actually China. They had one city. What did they build a hotel? And I'm probably got this wrong because I got brain damage. But they built a hotel below ground, just to avoid the air.
Oh wow!
Because the air is so polluted above ground that they built this thing like down below to try to get out of it.
The underground cities.
I remember when they had the
But
Olympics
the problem,
there, and they were wearing masks because people couldn't breathe. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you have the opposite problem going to Denver. You know, you get up there and the air's too thin. You go to China and you just can't breathe.
As a New Englander, I think doing something to start reducing. I think it's acid that's what's in the air caused by out west that we end up with in our
the acid rain.
The acid rain.
But it comes from everywhere.
Canada. A lot of it comes from Canada.
Yeah.
But we should be doing something to start over time. Eliminating
That's
that.
thinking that man can really make a huge difference. I think we have to be conscious of the things that we do and be resourceful in doing and coming up with different ideas. But I don't think it needs to be mandated by the central government. And so
I'm not sure that they would otherwise. I think I've worked for a lot of companies, and they will do what they absolutely have to. I'll give you this is one of the reasons I think you and I differ on right to work.
We differ on right to work?
Yeah, I don't agree with right to work.
Oh, you don't? Okay. All right. So I guess we do differ on something.
Yeah.
Oh, see, you are to the right of him, maybe.
Well, I don't have an
opinion.
Formed a solid
well, at least
opinion,
if he's against right to work, that puts him in the left.
I guess by
that
default,
puts you in the middle. And me to the right.
Yeah, in that particular issue, you would be in between us.
So I would be to the right of you, I guess.
Hey.
Okay, all right, there is something.
There we go, man.
I always knew this day
Way
would
to
come.
Go.
All right.
Your indecision has put you to the right of me.
Awesome.
But as somebody who has been a blue-collar worker all their life, I know that the corporations, not the small ones are a different story, but the larger corporations, if they could get away with paying you $2 an hour and working on a dirt floor, in bare feet with metal chips on the ground, they would do it.
Well, Gary, I don't disagree
because
that might
it's
be
all
a
about the
possibility.
bottom line, and I've been dealing with Aetna for my insurance. You know what they told me now? They were going to reinstate my disability because I got the glaucoma, and then they sent me a letter and says, "Oh, we've changed our mind. We believe you could find a job for $21 an hour in an office setting." So they think I can get an entry-level job typing in an office. I can't spell. I can't see, and I can't spell.
Yeah.
And he
Okay.
puts the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Yeah, them ones too. Them ones too. So it's just because all they care about is their bottom line,
Right.
and they know that the probability of me fighting it is, say, 1 in 50, or 1 in 10.
I hope you make them 100% wrong on that.
I do too, but they know that they know the probabilities of fighting back are 1 in 10. They know the possibility of me winning is 1 in 50, or no, 1 in 5, and they know that the worst possible scenario is they have to pay back the money they should have been paying me to begin with. Why not do it?
Right.
Those are good odds. It's a
Well,
lot better.
I think you've got a point there, Gary, but on the other hand, why should I be forced, just because of the job that I happen to be in, to be working for, be forced to subsidize a point of view that I don't agree with?
What are you talking about?
Well, many of your unions
Yeah.
do have PACs,
Right.
and they take your union dues and they put them into the PAC. And if you are in a closed shop, you have to put your money into something maybe that you don't agree with.
We do that all the time. Your taxes are spent on stuff that you and I
Well,
definitely don't
I
agree
know,
with.
and I fight all
And-
the time against taxes.
And most of the closed shops have voted to become closed shops.
But
most of the
if-
unions
but a lot
in
of
New Hampshire.
times, but when you're coming in from that's fine for you if you have the opportunity to vote on it.
Right.
But what about the person that's now down the line, the next generation, that never got the chance to vote on that?
Voted out. But the thing is, it's
It's a lot harder to vote it out when it's you know what it's like once you go institute a tax.
Yes.
All we can do is increase it.
yes, exactly.
Very, very
Oh, I
rarely do we
understand.
go back
I
and say
understand.
no. Do we not want this?
Yeah.
I understand, but most of the unions in the state are, you do not have to join them. The only thing you're required to do in most instances is pay for the negotiation fee.
If that were the case,
That's most of them.
if that were the case across the board, then I could say, okay, we don't need to push for this.
Yeah.
But I think that when you're denying me, it's just like Obamacare, you know? It's great that we're going to provide health care or opportunities for people who would not normally have had that opportunity, or pre-existing conditions or some of that. But the problem is that now you're taking away my choice as a person out here in the audience here, who has for 25 years not gone the insurance route. I've been negotiating, saving my money, negotiating directly with my doctors and my healthcare providers, and I see no reason to do the insurance route.
Right.
And I'm quite happy not to. But you just took away my choice.
Oh, I agree with that, but that's different.
No, it's not.
It's hugely different because now,
I
under
have no choice in the matter. I don't have any choice if I'm the next generation coming up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
well, I
actually
could
you
vote
did.
it out. Well, you could
you could
vote
vote it out, or
Obama
you
care out
don't.
too.
You also don't have to work there.
Right, you're
Yeah,
not mandated.
You're
Right,
not mandated
that's
to
right.
work there. The
If you
difference,
accept-
the difference is the federal government is mandating what everybody in the United States has to do.
Well,
I don't have a problem with Obamacare if it was statewide. Like if the New Hampshire state legislature decided that it wanted a version of the Massachusetts Romney Care, fine. But I have a problem with the federal government
Well-
mandating to everybody in the country.
I can maybe go along with that, maybe. But we had Jean Shaheen, remember when she was governor?
Yeah.
And we had 80% of our kindergarten-aged children that were already attending private kindergartens, and for 20%, we said, you have to now, everybody has to have
Everybody has to have it.
kindergarten. Well, what about those parents that chose not to have their children go into kindergarten yet because they were not ready in their
They're
opinion?
little kids. You don't
They're
have
little kids. You don't have to go. Or what about those people who have their children in readiness? Oh, no, we can't do that anymore either. You just took 20% of my population's choice away.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would have voted. I'm sure I did vote against it if I had that. Did I? When was
I don't
that?
know. I don't remember, Gary.
First 2 years was Gene Shaheen when I was in.
Well, you probably did vote against it.
But
We'll have to go check that
I agree.
record out, though.
Yeah, no
Make
kidding,
sure
right?
we hold him.
That's right. Accountable, yes.
Well, what I'm getting at is I agree, and I would have voted against that. And if they tried to implement Romney Care in New Hampshire as a legislator, I still would have voted against it. Okay, but I don't have a problem with the state
I agree.
deciding for itself that it wants to do that. I have a huge problem with the federal government deciding.
Well, the federal
for the states
government
what
has
they will or will
its
not
fingers where it should not
all
have
the
them.
time, constantly.
We need to go back and start fighting for state sovereignty once again, because it really is so much of the expense that we dole out with our tax dollars. It's costing us a whole lot of money to get back a little bit of attaboys from the federal government when it comes to health, education, welfare.
Everything they stick their hands in becomes more and more intrusive and expensive. You want more?
I want more money.
You want more money?
Yeah.
No,
Costs right now.
Don't look at
Costs
me. I don't
you.
carry any cash. I just have my debit card.
Hey, Karen, I got one for you.
Okay.
I think I might have asked you this last time you were on, but I just did this on Norm's show. But you got to tell me who this quote's from.
Uh-oh.
The oppressed are allowed once every few years to decide which particular representatives of the oppressing class are to represent and repress them.
I'll give you a hint. It's not Mark Twain.
It's probably somebody like Lenin, unfortunately.
It's Karl Marx.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Karl Marx. It's amazing what these men said before they oppressed all of the people.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I don't think after a while they actually had the opportunity to. They didn't elect Lenin, did they? So he's talking about people who were elected. He wasn't putting them in the same category.
Ringo was my favorite. Oh, sorry, different Lennon. I apologize.
Yeah,
Excuse me. I'm not very bright. I'm sorry.
No, it was a different Marx.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
that's
not the
true,
Marx
too.
brothers.
Right, no. Oh, I was.
Yeah. Groucho was, and Harpo. They were funny.
They were
weren't
wicked
they?
funny.
They
Wicked
were
funny.
Really, really funny.
There's one skit where they're at a train station, and he's trying to borrow some money from some guy, and it's just the way he's like picking the guy. Like what Harpo was the one that didn't speak.
He didn't
right?
speak, right? He was
Yeah,
the mime.
he's like going
basically.
around and like stealing money out of the guy's pocket, and it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Those are great things to watch the reruns on.
Yeah.
They're still as funny today, I think, probably as they were when they were produced. But
So how are you doing? You what are we doing?
I'm having
with
a
this,
good time.
What are we doing with this election? You're supporting Sir Bob F. Smith.
I am. It was really important to me as I looked at the field of candidates not to repeat the same mistake over and over and over again.
Which
is every time we conservatives get in, we usually have one or two of us splitting the vote and ushering in the moderate.
Right.
Somebody who doesn't necessarily go along with the full tenets of the Republican Party.
Like Jim
So-
Rubens.
Yeah, like Jim Rubin.
Jim Rubens is a nice guy.
Oh,
but
He's a nice guy, but
I like-
don't agree with his policies.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't agree with the fact that every time he gives you a new idea, it's going to be, I will fix it. Not, I'll get rid of it, I'll repeal it, I'll send it back to the states. He's going to fix it. So
I don't know if you saw that, Karen. You're hitting your mic. apparently.
Uh-oh,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
that's mic abuse as well as.
A little backbeat for the
yeah,
for the viewers.
well, I'm sorry.
That's all right. A lot of people
don't
do.
wanna-
Figure you someday.
Yeah, well, that's because I get passionate.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
But at any rate, I'll try to control myself a
So
little bit more.
what is the and I was
So- The idiocy is to continue to split that conservative vote and make people who are principled voters have to make that decision that's self-destructive in the long run. So I decided what I would do is step aside and help Bob become the anointed one and see if we couldn't get him elected. Let the primary voters come out en masse because they're excited about having somebody to vote for.
Yeah, I know, because it's. I don't know where Rubin stands on the gun issue,
Well,
but I know. What did Brown, Scott Brown? What did he do specifically on the firearm, on the Second Amendment issue?
A couple of different things.
Okay.
One, he was sitting on a company that was talking about putting RFIDs on firearms, so that it was nice because if it was your firearm, then nobody else could fire it. However, if you're in a real situation, okay, your wife's at home by herself, and she picks up your firearm because there's an intruder and she can't fire it.
Right.
That's kind of dangerous.
That's actually that's not what scares me. With the RFID.
The
RFID controlled, because one of the primary purposes of the Second Amendment is to maintain the balance of power in the hands of the people.
Right.
If the NSA can tap into Matt's cell phone,
that's right.
That means they can shut off your firearms before they even walk into your house to search it for whatever they want.
That's another problem. Problem.
That's a huge
problem.
The
other problem, though, that I thought was quite interesting is, beside the fact that he keeps claiming that he was born on the naval shipyard, that, as I recall, the latest ruling is that belongs to Maine.
Yes.
But
for real?
Yes.
Oh, that's funny.
We lost that lawsuit quite a few years ago.
Oh, that's funny.
But beside that fact, the fact of the matter is, somebody asked him about getting a license to carry, and he says, "Oh yeah, I applied for that a month and a half ago." Well, by New Hampshire state law, your police chief has to give you that license within 14 days of your application.
Correct.
So I guess he doesn't know New Hampshire law after all.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
And who was it? Rachel Maddow? Is that the?
On MSNBC.
She went after him ballistically because he didn't even know that it was live free or die.
Right.
What did he think it was? Live free
and die.
And die.
Which we all do eventually. But
he's just expressing his comfortability with the inevitability of it.
Is it that?
That's funny. I didn't know.
That's wicked funny. But I thought he voted on stuff when he was a state senator also. And
he did. He voted for gun control in Massachusetts. I mean, he's a Massachusetts liberal who wants to come up here, and I still don't understand. And I know the Republican Party hierarchy is going to be very, very upset with me, but. When we talked about Reagan always said 80%, if they agree with you 80% of the time, we can work with them.
Right.
I think there's still some underlying principles that we can't
bend on.
Bend on. But, okay, so they agree with you 80% of the time. But he only agrees with us, Scott Brown, 38% of the time.
Right.
So how can we call him a Republican? I think he's really a Democrat undercover, so I think a brown duck would be really nice to put on the chair.
I feel like there's kind of
this...
this...
but then we just get run over.
Well, you have to be careful. You put him in the chair, not on the road, because otherwise somebody might run over him.
Yeah.
I feel like with him, there's kind of this unspoken thing where he's kind of winking and nodding and saying, "Look, I did what I had to do in Massachusetts, but I'll be more conservative here because New Hampshire is more conservative."
We love you.
Right.
Is that like Nancy Pelosi? Pass it before you read it, so you know what's in it.
Right. We got to vote for him because we don't know what's
Obamacare, in it. Yeah. But I feel like that's kind of the game he's playing. He's kind of hoping that everyone will just say, "Oh, okay."
Karen's a lot more tactful than I am, but as far as I'm concerned, the Sununus and the power brokers in New Hampshire saw Scott Brown as somebody who had the what do you want to call it, the fame, so to speak, to win, and that's all they care about.
Right.
Their only purpose in life is to win, and Sununu's pretty much said that, and
the problem with just winning and not winning with principles and values is that our country's falling apart. And if we don't put people in there who have a moral compass that will stand for something, then we just keep ushering the country off the cliff.
If all we care about is winning, why don't we just set up a PAC called, Republicans for Jean Shaheen and vote for her? Right?
What? There probably is a group too.
It probably is. But it's an insane position to take, that we don't care how somebody's going to vote. All we care about is winning.
Right.
It's just, what's the point? Because we're just going to end up with Obamacare 2 or something like that.
Well, you think you don't have choices now, and you will really truly be enslaved. You won't be able to think what you want to think, say what you want to say.
Yep.
It's already gotten to that point in some cases where, you've got people who want to bake a cake and they can't bake the cake for their clients that they have, or somebody that walks in through the door and says, "I want you to bake this kind of cake," and you say,
Right.
I don't think I can put my kind of creative energy into it, and they say, "Oh, well, we'll take you to court then."
What's going to happen if somebody is a Christian and they have a cake shop, and somebody's a Satanist and they want them to do
better do it.
Do something to celebrate, devil worship?
Yep. Well, you don't have that right anymore.
You don't have that right anymore.
No. In fact, if you're a parent,
yeah,
we keep complaining and hearing the complaints out of the schools that parents don't get involved. But if you're a parent, you get involved nowadays. You get arrested and taken off to jail.
Go to jail.
Yeah. That's right.
I mean, they had at one of the local schools. One of my grandsons came back with an assignment that said, "We want you to write a paper on a very good argument for why you disagree with one of your parents' rules."
Yes.
What's the purpose of that?
To drive this wedge between you and your children so that your children don't think that you know what you're talking about.
Correct.
Mom and dad are stupid.
I mean, they're going to do that anyway when they're teenagers. Why start it,
Why help them?
Why help them?
Well,
they don't
I'm
need
not
help.
sure I understand why schools are teaching values anyway. They should be teaching phonics.
Reading,
1,
writing.
2, 3.
Yeah.
Fractions.
Fractions. Fracking. We're back to fracking.
No.
That's right.
Fractions.
Fracking.
That's when you
Fractal Rock. That's where that comes from.
Down in Fraggle Rock.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. There you go.
So, do you know what the landscape looks like? Because right now, theoretically, we have Scott Brown splitting the moderate vote with Jim Rubens.
That's right. That's where it should be split too, by the way.
Right.
Because despite his claiming otherwise, the man is not a conservative. But he's authentic. He's got authenticity. Is that his latest thing? Authenticity. Not sure what that means, but
I don't know what it means. I'm not authentic
it's
about
plastered
anything.
everywhere, though.
That's all right.
But I was in New Boston yesterday for something completely different, and I walked by. I think you might have seen this on my Facebook post. I just walked near the Scott Brown rally or whatever it was. Man, the place reeked of pot. It was
really?
Yeah, for real. It was. Huh. It wasn't like there was a person over there smoking a doobie. It was like there was somebody over there smoking a lot of doobies, a lot of people smoking. Huh. It was really crazy.
I thought you were joking about
No, I'm not
that.
joking.
Oh, okay.
But it made me. It was so bad that just walking by, I had to go back into Dodge's store and buy a case of Twinkies.
Yeah, well, you don't want Twinkies to go out of business again.
Exactly.
Maybe Twinkies is sponsoring the Scott Brown campaign. They might be.
But then I thought about it. It makes sense. I mean, you have to be a little bit high to support the guy. So.
He's a poet. Don't know it. Let the feet show it. Let's see.
Yeah, I've seen that in the past where the powers that be support. That's what happened. And Bob Smith wouldn't, at least, I don't think will say this, but I'll say it, that if you look at the Senate, when he was one of the most Republicans in the Senate. If you look at his voting record, what he fought for, his fight for veterans, his fight for the Second Amendment, he did filibusters to protect us from gun laws and things did whatever he could within his power to fight for the Constitution and people's constitutional rights.
Right. He did.
Okay.
And in fact, that was a perplexing situation to be in when you go down to Washington, D.C., and you start talking to the different groups that do have PACs that might be able to say to their constituents, this is a person that we'd like to get behind and endorse, so that you could now funnel your contributions in that direction. And they'd say, well, we know where you are. We know you've been solid, but then there's Bob Smith,
Right.
and he carried the water for us. So a lot of places that I went, that was a big conundrum for people, because you had two people who were solid together on these issues, and so why make the voters
Could you
go
be
through
like
that?
a vice senator?
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's a good idea. Thinking
so-
outside the box.
I'm thinking outside the box. I don't know if this would work. I just thought
That's
of,
what Jim Rubens claims he does, but he doesn't really. Yeah. Anyway, I had to throw that in there. I'm sorry.
that no, it's true. I was
I finally found a voting record on him, and he voted against partial birth abortion, and then he voted for life on another issue. Interesting, right?
Yeah. But
I thought I'd throw that out there because I know a lot of people don't know that. It's hard to find.
yeah, when did he have a voting record?
Well, there's this organization called the New Hampshire Right to Life,
Yeah.
and they used to put out their scorecards.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
so he
this-
filled this out.
Well, no, he actually voted because he was in the Senate and voting
Oh,
Okay.
way back, but it's before the electronic recordings that you can go up on nh.gov and start researching voting records now,
Sure.
but it only goes back to 1998. He served
okay.
prior to 1998, so
Okay.
it's a little harder to find.
And they also
those.
didn't do a lot of roll calls back there.
That's
back
true.
then.
That's true.
They avoided those. So
Yes.
here's my out. I don't know if anybody has thought of this
Outside the box.
outside the box. Could you create? Does a food co-op fall outside of that law that says that, like, let's say the satanic cake? Does a food co-op fall outside? In other words, if I agree with 5,000 other people to have a food co-op, are you still required to provide certain services, or is that because it's a private group, can they kind of skirt that? In other words, you create a food co-op so that you could make the cake, a Christian could make a cake and not be subject to, making cakes for, the Satanic Sunday or whatever thing it is that they do, or
Satanic
Friday the
Sunday.
13th cake that they make. I don't know what they do. So
The flaming liberal cake.
the flaming liberal cake. And so, but I wonder if you could arrive at that in a co-op setting. Would they be subject to the same kind of restrictions, that they still have to serve anybody that comes in, or could they say, no, well, you're not part of the co-op?
Well, if you extend that to the public school, which is technically a co-op, basically, you've got all these people coming in, and
But that's a public school. This
and
not.
the public school.
But a private school wouldn't be subject to that, which is what I'm talking about.
I don't know. Can you have a group of people who are forming a food co-op who are that diverse in their fundamental thinking? You still invite. I don't know. The
Just an
problem
idea,
is
just an idea.
we're violating the very First Amendment premise that you can have the freedom to speak, have the freedom to assemble, have the freedom of religion, the freedom of association, the freedom of the press.
Right.
I mean, how can we deny people to exercise their right of conscience? That's what we're doing.
I know, but we've been doing it for a
Don't know.
long.
I know we've been doing,
Doing it for a long time, and before it was over racism. People, companies that wouldn't sell to somebody who was black got sued, and that went to the Supreme Court, I believe. So now it's being, co-opted by this other stuff. So it's already written in constitutional, law, so to speak. So they're the groups that are fighting to say that we're not going to make a cake for somebody. They're going to lose if they haven't already.
They already have.
They already have.
They've
yeah.
already been told that your rights of conscience no longer apply.
Right.
But why is that right?
I don't know, a lot of
Why is that are you allowed to take away that freedom?
because
It's a basic
I
freedom.
know the reason. Okay, this is the reason they're allowed to do that, is because you have the United States Congress who has no testicular fortitude. They will
that's true,
not
too.
fight back. The United States Congress has the power to fight back. As you know, I was part of the group that tried to take Souter's house after the New London, Connecticut case.
Yes.
The Susan Kelo versus New
That's
London,
right.
Connecticut.
That's right.
As far as I was concerned, that was so profoundly obvious and so profoundly egregious.
And
If-
they've not built anything on that piece of property, by the
no,
way.
they
They
bailed out.
Really?
knocked
Yeah.
down the house, but they've not
Pfizer
done
bailed
anything.
out. Pfizer bailed out.
Wow.
But that was so obvious. I mean, anybody with any kind of common sense understood that case and understood that it was so profoundly unconstitutional. The United States Congress, if they had any
Backbone.
integrity at all,
Right.
should have done something immediately to nullify that Supreme Court decision.
But
But there's too much
unfortunately,
money to be made.
Well, money and power. And
Yep.
that's what's corrupted our Congress in many, many cases.
Yep.
But I will have to say, Bob Smith has not done that. He's not a whole lot more rich than when he walked in the door. He's not like, who is it, the lady that wants to become president who said that, feel sorry for my daughter. We only get, what is it, $4 million a year? I forgot what the numbers were. They're astronomical numbers, large numbers that the average American voter doesn't get to participate in. And but her daughter lives in an $11 million house. I mean,
Oh, you're talking about Hillary?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Oh,
heard
yeah.
I heard her say something about they're not like people who are really well off. And they're worth, I think, 55 million is their.
No, $250-something million. It's a huge amount of money.
I've heard
But-
different numbers. But
Yeah, but her whole thing was it. Remember, I'm gonna forget it. Remember back one of the Wall Street scams? I think the company was in Texas, and they just scammed people. And the woman that was the wife of the husband, who was Enron, I think. She went on with Barbara Walters. And she went on and she's trying to claim poverty. And she says, Barbara, we're just trying to maintain liquidity right now. Okay? I had to look it up. It was quite a few years ago, so I wasn't. I had
The
to.
average
What
person,
does liquidity mean? You know, who the heck says that?
people
right?
who own stocks and have lots and lots and lots
Lots
of
and
money
lots of
and
money.
lots of options.
And lots of options. And it was just the same thing with Hillary on that interview the other
Yeah.
day with, wow, when because of legal fees, which are mostly, they were self-inflicted, because of legal fees, Bill and I, we were having a tough time getting a down payment for the houses.
Well, how about
Houses!
Right,
Houses! Not a
Yeah.
house. We're not talking $100,000 house in a nice quaint little neighborhood. We're talking about mansions.
Right. Oh,
It's
yeah.
like, really?
Yeah.
It's sad. You just want. I don't know if I brought a tear to your eye, but I was
I
pretty
felt
upset.
I felt terrible.
I felt
for,
like
for
I
her
should
and
send
for
the money
Bill
or
and
something.
I know, right? Yeah.
Right,
Maybe
yeah.
maybe a dollar or something
I
just to
keep
help.
reaching in my pocket. I just can't get to the bottom of it yet to find the penny to send.
Yeah, that was such an arrogant thing to say. I just couldn't believe somebody really thought that they were poor
Well,
in
when you
that
live
position.
in that atmosphere, when you have lobbyists who pay for your way,
Yeah.
when you have the insider trading information and so forth like that, then you start to.
It's sad.
I mean, I do.
Everything becomes relative,
Oh yeah, I do believe the part about them being underwater when they left the White House because of the legal fees, but they made all of that back exponentially with speaking
fees are like
fees.
$20,000
Exactly.
there was-
a shot.
Oh yeah,
There
and
was
book
no-
deals.
If
and- yeah.
they were as destitute as she presented herself to be,
right,
nobody would have given her a loan for that property.
right,
Okay.
yeah.
There's just. I'm
Well,
sorry.
but the
there's-
other part of it is that they could have left the furniture and so forth in the White House where it belonged instead of trying to.
Well, they were. They were
Forgot
broke.
about that.
They were broke. They had to have something.
That's right. They needed a couch.
I mean, for cripe's sake, you're just
Well,
so
I
selfish.
It's
So
because you, the taxpayer, need to fund me.
right.
Even after I've done my service to you.
Right.
When I leave the White House, you're supposed to keep paying me and keep
You,
paying
you know,
me and
I don't.
keep paying me.
I don't know. I wanted to say something about Senator Smith because back to the thing. I think that the reason he lost his re-election bid was strictly because the Sununu's thought it was a good opportunity to get the kid in there. That's it.
Really? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yep. That's when Sununu became the senator.
Mm-hmm.
It was they saw a chink in the armor and they went after him. They just nailed him constantly.
That family plays dirty.
They will do anything to maintain power,
Oh,
quote
yeah.
unquote, regardless of what that power means.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you to your point about to Bob. I had a friend in Ware who was a military contractor, and he told me privately. He says all the other representatives in Washington D.C. for New Hampshire, every single one of them, if he was to try to sit down and talk to them for 5 minutes, he had to have his checkbook open. Those are all Republicans at the time. So this isn't a slam towards Dems. This is a slam towards the Republicans that were in when Bob Smith was in. Every single one of them required him to have his checkbook open just to sit down and talk to him, except Bob Smith. Bob Smith was the only one that said, yeah, I'll talk to you. So, you're right. Bob Smith has been in the trenches and he's fought the good fight, So that's absolutely true.
And, you talk to the POWMIAs and they'll say, this is the man who was there. Nobody else was there for me. When we wanted to fight that fight and get that recognition through, he was there fighting it for me. He was the one that took the partial birth abortion ban to the floor of the House, or the Senate, I'm sorry, and argued for it, So he's carried many a bale of water for somebody.
A bale of water?
A bale of water.
Bale
A
of water?
bucket of water.
Bucket of water.
Yeah, it's got to be buckets because a bale of water would be too
Be a
heavy.
bale of hay.
Well,
bale of hay, bucket of water.
It's like this big by that. That would be.
He's a big dude.
He's not that big.
I had no idea.
I'm
Karen.
amazed at how tall he was. I thought I have this one friend that I considered to be very tall. I've always liked this to him.
Yeah.
He walked in after Bob walked in the door, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, there was this much discrepancy. Holy smokes, the man is tall.
I had no idea because when we had him on the show, I knew he was tall. I didn't know he was that tall. I'm just like looking up at the guy, like, wow.
Yeah, he's
He's
huge.
a
a big
tall guy.
Yeah.
And he has a wonderful family. So, what can I say?
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's definitely one of the good ones that's gonna, if he wins election, will actually go up there and fight for us.
that brings me to that point. September 9th is not that far away.
No, it is not.
We're talking July, August, September.
Yep.
2 months away. And we need all the help we can get to get the word out and to introduce people to him and to share his message with the rest of the people, which is a constitutional message based on strong Republican values. Matt, you may not agree with that, but that's okay.
Yeah. I like Jim Rubens.
He's a likable man.
Yeah.
But he changes with the wind. He's one of those.
Right. I think if you're a person who really cares about the Constitution, the Second Amendment, Bob is absolutely the better of the three.
And someone who believes in the foundational principles laid out in our Declaration of Independence. It says we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator.
You get a chance to talk to him. This is when he gets elected. There's something I'd like to see happen, and I'm going to say this. I got to remember to say this. Mary Linda's coming on, I think, next week or the week after.
Oh, okay, Mary Linda Garcia.
Yeah.
I would like
She's
to.
articulate too.
She's a bright lady. But I would like to see legislation passed, and that if any director or person that works for the United States government comes before Congress, and when they're asked about the things that have happened in their as an employee of the United States government, if they plead the fifth, they're out instantly. It is immediate reason for dismissal.
Well, what I don't understand is you have not only she testified before she took the fifth And
Yes,
then
she
she
did.
testified again.
Yeah, she came out with this big long diatribe of
Lois
how
Lerner?
how her response and all this other stuff. And then as soon as she had the opportunity,
So
to plead
glad
the
you
fifth.
keep our audience informed about who we're talking about, because otherwise you wouldn't know.
Yeah.
You could guess a whole lot. But Lois Lerner, yes, she did do that. And the thing is, though, why isn't the Congress turning around and saying and issuing impeachment to those people, or putting them on notice and issuing indictments for lying to Congress?
Right.
Why that's not happening, I don't know, and
Well,
I do not understand I mean, you've got Brian and how many of them that are so upset with the different people who are coming forward. It's not just one person. It's not just Lois Lerner. It's
Right.
all of these people.
Right.
And for heaven's sakes, Nixon resigned because he was using the IRS to manipulate people for his way of thinking. Isn't that what's going on now?
It's exactly. Not only that, I was to me.
Uh-oh.
Brain cramp.
Is it a cramp, or do you have holes in your head?
Yeah, I get that too. I get brain damage. No, it just seemed like it seemed like if she pleads the fifth, that is more than enough reason to dismiss her instantaneously.
Yeah.
It's just that's insane.
Well, and the
that
thing
we even
is
allow
that it's not just dismissing. These people
Okay,
need to
now
be
I remember.
brought up on
Right.
charges and
and
prosecuted. Yes.
Okay, my point was, what I was trying to think of was that you got a private company. Okay. The president of the company calls you into his offices. Karen, we're kind of suspicious about something you did last week. I need you to answer to that. And you say, I plead the fifth. What happens to your job?
You lose it.
Boom.
Yeah.
You're done.
Yeah,
you're
you're
gone.
done. You're gone.
That's it.
At
You,
the-
you don't go to a private employer and say, I plead the
Right.
fifth. I don't want to answer any questions as to whether or not I was doing my job, how well I was doing my job, or anything else. You're gone. That's it.
Matt's leaving.
It's about that time.
I noticed that he picked everything up and he's ready to walk out the door.
It's
so-
just my signal to Gary, because sometimes Gary
No, I don't.
gets
Every
so
time.
because Gary's a very passionate man. He gets very
He
impassioned
is.
and he loses
No,
track. of
no.
time.
Yes, but that's what's great. That is what is great about Gary.
I'm a kinder,
Yes.
gentler Gary now.
Yes.
Now,
Okay.
what
No,
happened?
not really.
Oh.
Hey, things are really tough around the house. My wife broke her wrist last week. You know how long it takes her to make dinner now? It's like tedious. It's like, jeez.
Poor Gary.
Well, if you get
I'm
up and
kidding,
help,
I'm kidding. I'm making a joke. That was a joke.
I hope.
I hope so. 'Cause
I
get
hope
beat
so.
up when I get home.
Yeah, really.
Again.
I don't blame her.
His wife doesn't watch the show.
So it's safe. Yeah. Hey, we'll see you next week, folks. Thank
Well,
you very much, Karen.
Thank you
Karen.
for having me on. It's been fun.
All right. Bye.